name's Sharon Calvano, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Um, and I see adults, men and women, individually and in couples in my private practice here in Baltimore City. And yeah, I see people on a weekly basis usually. And when people think of a social worker, they often ask me, like, oh, do you just work with kids, or do you, sort of like hand out welfare checks? And that's some of social work, but I was trained clinically, which is just doing therapy. So the way we look at working with somebody is we look at all the things in your life that affect you, like your social networks and your education level and your class and your gender and your everything, your family, and how all that affects your mental health and how you're doing. And so we work, I don't want to say from the outside in, but we work within that framework of all this stuff is affecting you and how can we make it all work together. It's called Hopewell Cancer Support, and it's a cancer wellness community. So it's actually in the county, but it's a nonprofit. We work solely on grants that we can get and donations. So we don't get, even though it's for people with cancer, we don't get anything from like the Cancer Society or the Komen Foundation or any of those. And it's a house. It's a beautiful house, and like every bedroom or whatever is an office space, and we have support groups and mind-body classes like qigong and yoga and fitness and that sort of thing. And it's a nice place for people with cancer to come and be able to talk to each other about what's going on, and a little bit of both. I worked in the women's prison in Jessup for a while, and specifically with women who were pregnant when they got locked up, and to help them figure out what to do with their babies and how to be a different kind of mom when they got out. So we worked a lot on what got them to prison, and what it was going to be like. But I had to then do also the legwork of, so she's going to be locked up for another 3 years after the baby's born. Who's going to take care of the baby, and where, that kind of stuff, which was very like traditional social work. But then I worked for most of my time at Patuxent Institution, which is an all therapeutic prison, and I I like being self-employed, and I think it's a good thing because, like, I have small businesses. It's like, I don't know, like in a small, when I was growing up on the Eastern Shore, my parents owned a restaurant, and we were the only Italian restaurant in town, and so everybody knew kind of our place or whatever. But every dollar that came into that restaurant came home to our family. It didn't go to all these bigger things that a big company has to do or whatever. And it paid people who lived down the street, because we, two of the waitresses lived 2 blocks away, and one of them I went to school with, and that kind of thing. So I think that it just helps with connection and small. I think small communities definitely need them, and Baltimore's like a big small town, so
Yeah.
I think we need more of it. I don't think it's the only way, but we definitely need more of it. I think one thing in the city that's been hard for years, and the city's working hard to change that now, is that what's it called, the urban something, where people like leave the city because they're afraid, and parts of the city are pretty scary. So with white flight, like, everybody lives in the suburbs and they drive into Baltimore to work.
Right.
So the economy in Baltimore doesn't stay stable, because they take the money they make and go back to the suburbs. So the money goes into what they do out in the county, and it doesn't stay here. So big businesses in Wall Street and people who bring a lot of money into the economy. But I think that small businesses are like the people who keep things going. And it's like the whole Walmart thing. Walmart took all the small businesses over, and then towns fall apart. The advantages are there's a lot of flexibility in my schedule. I still have to work the, 35 or 40 hours, but I can decide, like on Tuesdays I do a 12-hour day, and on other days I can leave early so I can pick my daughter up from school or run errands or whatever. So it's very flexible. Um, and I don't have anybody kind of looking over my shoulder saying, you have to do this thing by 11 a.m. or else you're fired, or, whatever, that kind of thing. I just kind of can make my own choices and manage my own time. which is also the worst thing about being self-employed because I'm not good at managing my own time. So I have to really make myself do the stuff I don't want to do.
I tried to get a loan for something. Like I tried to refinance the mortgage on my house a couple years ago, and my husband's name isn't on my house because I owned it before we got married. So he has a job with a company, a big company actually. So he would have no trouble refinancing, but since it's in my name, every bank that I called to get a loan, they were like, "Well, but you're self-employed, so we can't help you." And then they would say, "Well, how much do you make?" And I would tell them this number that sounds like a really good salary, but on my taxes, it looks very different because there's the number that I make, like let's say 70,000 or whatever, and then I subtract what I spend on rent and what I spend on supplies, like every pencil I can subtract, and my I have to pay to keep my license active and all the things like that normally an employer would pay for that stuff for me. So once I subtract all that, my $70,000 salary goes down to like $35,000. So then the bank looks at it and says, "You make $35,000, we can't give you a loan. That's nothing," So I'm like, "But that's not what I make." So, yeah, we become kind of invisible, I think.
So the six of us that are here now decided to stay together, and we found this place. So we're not affiliated with each other like a group practice. We're all completely separate, but we share the rent, and we're very democratic. We make decisions, like down to the radio station in the waiting room. We all sort of vote on it and decide on it and whatever. But it's more like roommates. It's probably like a bunch of people in an apartment. We argue over like who's going to clean the kitchen, or I bought the dishwashing liquid last time, and whatever. And we're all women, which is important to us. That we're all women owned and that sort of thing.